10 toughest actors in Hollywood history. These actors didn't just portray rugged characters on screen, they embodied toughness in their real lives. They were the kind of individuals who could deliver a knockout blow and then calmly continue filming. Hollywood's most formidable stars didn't need to fake their portrayals of heroes, fighters, or warriors. Their off-screen lives were often as intense and perilous as the roles they played. These men brought genuine grit to their performances, forged through real-world experiences. Today, we're peeling back the curtain on Hollywood's glossy narratives to uncover the astonishing truth about the 10 most resilient actors in film history. Men whose courage, strength, and tenacity shone through in their roles. What makes the actor at number 4 so remarkable is that studio heads went to great lengths to conceal his past, fearing audiences would find it too unbelievable. Before we dive into this captivating slice of Hollywood history, I'd love to hear where you're tuning in from. Leave a comment below with your location. I read everyone and enjoy connecting with fellow fans of classic cinema worldwide. Let's kick off our journey with perhaps the most authentically tough actor in Hollywood history, a man whose real-life feats sound like the stuff of legend but are meticulously documented. First, Audi Murphy. When you think of Hollywood's tough guys, names like John Wayne or Clint Eastwood might come to mind, but the most formidable man to grace the silver screen was a youthful-looking 5 feet 5 inches actor who seemed so unassuming that casting directors hesitated to put him in action roles. Yet Audi Murphy was, without question, the most genuinely dangerous man in Hollywood's history. Before his acting career, Murphy became the most decorated U.S. combat soldier of World War II. At just 19, he single-handedly fended off a German company for an hour in France, then led a counterattack despite being injured and out of ammunition. This act of valor earned him the Medal of Honor, the highest U.S. military award. That was just one chapter in Murphy's extraordinary service. He earned every U.S. Combat Valor Award, plus 5 honors from France and Belgium, amassing 28 medals by age 21. His wartime exploits included destroying enemy tanks, charging machine gun positions solo, and fighting on despite 3 wounds. Hollywood discovered Murphy after his heroics landed him on the cover of Life magazine, but casting him proved challenging due to his boyish appearance. When he arrived for his first screen test, security guards doubted he was the celebrated war hero. Ironically, Murphy's unthreatening look belied his lethality. Military historians estimate he personally killed 240 to 300 enemy soldiers, more than many entire units. In a surreal twist, Murphy played himself in the autobiographical war film To Hell and Back, reenacting his battlefield heroics. However, some of his real feats were toned down because producers feared audiences would find them implausible. Director Jesse Hibbs later admitted, "We had to omit some of Audi's actual deeds. No one would have believed them." Murphy battled severe PTSD after the war, sleeping with a loaded gun nearby and waking from nightmares in a cold sweat, instinctively reaching for a weapon. His second wife, Wanda Hendress, once said, "Audi had 2 sides. In public, he was quiet and kind, but in nightmares, he transformed into someone else, a hardened soldier whose instincts were unnerving." Despite his struggles, Murphy maintained remarkable composure in Hollywood. Only once did his combat instincts emerge publicly, during a heated altercation with a businessman. Witnesses said Murphy's swift, menacing response left the man shaken, later confessing, "I realized I was staring at someone who could end me without a second thought. It was terrifying." What sets Murphy apart is that, unlike others on this list, he didn't chase tough guy roles. He preferred lighter, comedic, or romantic parts to distance himself from his violent past. Yet beneath his gentle exterior was a man who had faced more combat and taken more lives than perhaps any other actor in history. 2. Charles Bronson. Before becoming a cinematic icon of toughness, Charles Bronson endured a grueling life that would have crushed most people. Born Charles Bukinski, he grew up in extreme poverty as one of 15 children in a Pennsylvania coal mining family. By age 10, he was toiling in the mines to support his family, spending his youth in dark, dangerous conditions hundreds of feet underground. Bronson rarely spoke of his childhood, but once remarked, "My roles resonate with me because of where I came from. I grew up in rough areas and witnessed violence and death up close. We lived with hardship and loss." Bronson's weathered face, wary squint, and grim expression weren't an act. They were the marks of a man who'd spent years breathing coal dust and fighting to survive in brutal neighborhoods where weakness was a liability. His true test came during World War II as a B-29 gunner in the Army Air Forces, flying 25 missions over Japan and earning a Purple Heart for combat injuries. Fellow soldiers described him as eerily composed under fire, the kind of man you wanted by your side in a crisis. After the war, Bronson's road to fame was rocky. He worked over 50 jobs, from onion picker to boxer, while chasing minor acting roles. Even as he landed steadier work, directors often typecast him as criminals or Native Americans, despite his Lithuanian roots, due to his naturally intimidating look. What set Bronson apart was his approach to fight scenes. While many actors performed choreographed stunts, Bronson fought with the raw efficiency of someone who'd been in real brawls. Film historian Eddie Mueller observed, "When Bronson lands a punch on screen, it feels real, like a man who's fought and knows how to inflict pain." Co-stars were struck by his surprising strength. At just 5 feet 9 inches, Bronson had the powerful frame of a former laborer and boxer. Jan Michael Vincent, who worked with him on The Mechanic, recalled, "In a scene where he grabbed my shirt, I felt his raw power. This wasn't an actor faking strength, it was real, built through years of toil." Bronson's toughness extended off-screen. After receiving mafia death threats following his role as vigilante Paul Kersey in Death Wish, he declined studio-offered bodyguards, reportedly saying, "I've survived too much to fear people like that." Unlike stars who might have milked such threats for attention, Bronson's quiet confidence reflected a man who'd faced far greater dangers. Director Michael Winner, who collaborated with Bronson on several films, summed it up. "Charles doesn't play tough, he is tough. Most actors portraying tough guys are soft at heart, but his hardness was real, born from a life of struggle." 3. Marvin Lee. Marvin didn't just act the part of menacing characters, he was the real deal. Before becoming one of Hollywood's most iconic tough guys, Marvin served as a Marine in World War II, enduring some of the Pacific Theater's fiercest battles. As a private first class in the 4th Marine Division, he fought in the 1944 Battle of Saipan, where he was gravely wounded by machine gun fire that severed his sciatic nerve. The injury left him hospitalized for a year and gave him a lifelong limp, which he skillfully concealed in his performances. For his service and wounds, Marvin received a Purple Heart, though he rarely discussed his combat experiences. When he did, he was starkly honest, avoiding the glorified tales some actor veterans told. He once said, "I was a Marine sniper in the Pacific, got shot, and was sent home." That's the truth. Anyone who claims they loved combat is either dishonest or delusional. This raw authenticity made Marvin uniquely suited to depict violence on screen. Director John Boorman, who worked with him on Point Blank, noted, "Lee understood violence in a way most actors couldn't. His portrayals carried a truth born from witnessing men kill and die. He knew violence was quick, brutal, and unglamorous, unlike the theatrics of most films." Marvin's wartime experience lent his roles in films like The Dirty Dozen and The Killers a haunting realism, setting him apart from peers who hadn't seen combat. Marvin's ability to intimidate wasn't an act. It stemmed from his real combat experiences. His presence on set often left fellow actors, even those accustomed to tough guy roles, feeling uneasy. James Coburn, no stranger to rugged characters, once remarked, "When Lee stepped onto a set, the energy shifted. People stood a little taller, sensing something inherently dangerous about him that was hard to define but impossible to ignore." A legendary incident underscores Marvin's genuine toughness. During filming in Oregon, he found himself in a bar brawl against a group of younger lumberjacks. Witnesses say Marvin, then in his 40s, held his ground until state police intervened. The next day, he arrived on set punctually, bruised but refusing medical care or any delays in production. What made Marvin so compelling was his blend of raw physicality and intellectual depth. Despite his reputation for heavy drinking and brawling, he was well-read and reflective about his craft. Director Samuel Fuller, who collaborated with Marvin on The Big Red One, noted, "Lee's wartime experiences gave him a profound perspective. He could discuss literature like Hemingway one moment and show you how to take down an opponent the next." In an era when many action stars were merely posing as tough, Marvin brought authenticity. A battle-hardened Marine whose real-life encounters with death informed every role. Film critic Roger Ebert summed it up. "When Lee Marvin made a threat on screen, you believed it because he could back it up in real life." 4. Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen wasn't just Hollywood's epitome of cool, he was a true risk-taker whose real-life exploits often surpassed his on-screen heroics. Unlike some actors who leaned on crafted images or stunt doubles, McQueen insisted on performing his own stunts and lived a life defined by danger and adventure. His journey to toughness began in a turbulent childhood marked by neglect and hardship. At 14, McQueen left home and later enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps in 1947. His military service was rocky. He was demoted 7 times for defiance, including a 41-day stint in the brig for overstaying a weekend pass. Yet McQueen redeemed himself, heroically saving 5 Marines during an Arctic training exercise when their tank plunged through ice. After an honorable discharge, he bounced between jobs like lumberjack and carnival worker before breaking into acting. Unlike many stars who settle into safer routines after fame, McQueen never stopped chasing thrills. His love for motorsports wasn't a pastime, it was a high-stakes obsession. He raced motorcycles and cars professionally, often under aliases to dodge studio restrictions. While filming The Great Escape, McQueen performed nearly all his motorcycle stunts except for the iconic fence jump, which insurance companies vetoed. His racing wasn't just for show, he competed against top drivers and excelled. In the 1970 012 Hours of Sebring, a grueling endurance race, McQueen and co-driver Peter Revson took second place, despite McQueen racing with a foot cast from a recent motorcycle crash. His stuntman and friend Bud Ekins said, "Steve wasn't pretending to be a racer or a tough guy, he was the real deal. I've seen pro racers with less skill and courage than Steve had on a bike or behind the wheel." McQueen's fearlessness carried over to his film work. On the Sand Pebbles, he performed a perilous river scene himself, nearly drowning in a strong current. During The Towering Inferno, he tackled stunts involving real flames that even seasoned stuntmen deemed too risky. Director John Sturges, who worked with McQueen on The Great Escape and The Magnificent Seven, noted, "The challenge with Steve wasn't convincing him to do dangerous stunts, it was keeping him from ones that could have killed him. He had no fear, which was both thrilling and nerve-wracking." McQueen's toughness shone through when he learned he was on Charles Manson's hit list alongside other celebrities. While others bolstered security teams, McQueen's response was simple. He carried a loaded Magnum pistol wherever he went. Racing legend Mario Andretti, who competed against him, observed, "Hollywood had plenty of actors playing tough, but Steve was tough. He had more courage on the track than some pros I knew." 5. Kirk Douglas. Before becoming a Hollywood titan, Kirk Douglas, born Isur Danielovich, clawed his way out of crushing poverty through sheer determination. The son of Jewish immigrants, he grew up in a household so poor that meals were sometimes scarce. As a boy, he earned pennies selling snacks to mill workers, honing the tenacity that would propel him to stardom. Douglas didn't just overcome hardship, he transformed it into physical prowess. Before acting, he was a competitive wrestler, earning a scholarship to St. Lawrence University for his skill in legitimate collegiate wrestling, a demanding sport requiring strength and discipline. His resilience was further tested during World War II, serving as a communications officer on a Navy submarine chaser, a high-risk role in anti-submarine warfare. Injuries sustained in service led to his medical discharge in 1944. What distinguished Douglas was his blend of physical might and unyielding resolve. Director Stanley Kubrick, who famously sparred with Douglas on Spartacus, later admitted, "Kirk was a force of nature. When he set his mind to something, it happened." His physical strength was notable, but his mental fortitude was daunting. On the Spartacus set, Douglas trained with former gladiators and wrestlers to ensure authentic fight scenes. In one instance, he performed a risky fall against the stunt coordinator's advice, sustaining injuries that would have sidelined most actors, but returning to work after just 2 days. Co-star Burt Lancaster, himself a former circus acrobat, said of Douglas, "Kirk treats acting like a battle. He doesn't just play a scene, he charges into it." Douglas's toughness extended beyond his prime. In 1991, at age 74, he survived a helicopter crash that killed 2 others and left him with a severe back injury. He endured grueling rehabilitation to walk again. After a 1996 stroke impaired his speech, he underwent years of therapy and wrote a book about his recovery, showcasing his relentless spirit. Director Howard Hawks, who worked with many rugged stars, said, "Lots of actors look tough, but Kirk was tough. You could see it in his eyes, a man who'd fought his way through life and feared nothing." In his autobiography, Douglas shared a glimpse of his philosophy. "If you tell someone no 3 times and they're still there, you might need to take action." It was a mindset forged in real struggles, not Hollywood bravado. 6. James Kagny. Don't be fooled by James Kagny's compact 5 feet 5 inches stature. He was one of Hollywood's fiercest stars, pound for pound. Long before he became synonymous with gritty gangster roles, Kagny honed his fighting skills out of necessity in Manhattan's rough Lower East Side. Growing up in a gang-ridden neighborhood, he learned to box not for sport, but for survival. Small in size, Kagny had to be faster and tougher than his adversaries, becoming a skilled amateur boxer with quick footwork and sharp punches that later defined his on-screen style. Audiences watching Kagny's visceral fight scenes didn't realize they were seeing a man who'd been in countless real street brawls and understood violence intimately. Unlike the exaggerated, drawn-out fights common in Hollywood, Kagny's were swift, brutal, and realistic, mirroring actual street encounters. Director Raoul Walsh, who worked with Kagny on films like White Heat, said, "Jimmy threw punches better than any actor I knew because he'd thrown real ones. When he hit someone on screen, it felt authentic because he knew what he was doing." Kagny's physical talents went beyond fighting. An accomplished dancer before acting, he possessed remarkable agility and coordination, enabling him to perform his own stunts well into his career. His dance training lent his violent scenes a unique blend of grace and explosive force, making them strikingly convincing. Co-stars often learned of Kagny's strength the hard way. During The Public Enemy, actress Mae Clarke was unprepared for Kagny's decision to genuinely shove a grapefruit in her face, resulting in real shock and minor injury. Such moments weren't isolated. Kagny's commitment to realism occasionally caught colleagues off guard, reinforcing his reputation as a formidable presence. Kagny's on-screen punches weren't always fully choreographed, reflecting his real-world experience. His reputation for toughness extended beyond the set, where he was known in Hollywood as someone you didn't provoke. Comedian Bob Hope once quipped, "Jimmy was the type who'd knock you down if you crossed him, then pick you up and brush you off with a smile." Kagny rarely spoke about his fighting skills, but in a 1973 interview, he shared a revealing comment. "I've always known how to hold my own. Growing up my size in my neighborhood, you either got good with your fists or spent a lot of time on the ground. I chose to stay on my feet." 7. John Wayne. John Wayne's iconic tough guy image wasn't just Hollywood hype, it was grounded in real physical strength and a rugged upbringing. Born Marion Morrison, Wayne grew up in the harsh, labor-intensive world of early 20th century California and Iowa. Standing 6 feet 4 inches with a powerful build from a young age, he first made his mark not as an actor, but as a football player, earning a scholarship to the University of Southern California. His athletic prowess shone early in Hollywood, where he worked as a prop man and stuntman, effortlessly moving heavy set pieces that required multiple men to handle. Unlike many stars, Wayne performed his own stunts well into his 40s, taking risks that would be unthinkable for modern A-listers. During the Alamo, he insisted on executing a dangerous horsefall, cracking his ribs but refusing to pause production. He had his ribs taped and kept directing and starring in the film. Director John Ford, a frequent collaborator, said, "Duke's toughness is real. I've watched him work 14-hour days in blistering desert heat that sent crew members to the hospital, then get up and do it again without a word. He's built differently. Wayne's resilience was starkly tested during The Conqueror, 1956, filmed in Utah's Snow Canyon near Nevada nuclear test sites. The cast and crew were exposed to radioactive fallout, and of the 220 people involved, 91 later developed cancer, including Wayne, who succumbed to stomach cancer in 1979. Despite health challenges likely tied to this exposure, Wayne continued tackling physically demanding roles for years. His pain tolerance was remarkable. During The Greatest Story Ever Told, 1965, he tore his shoulder ligaments in a stunt but refused to stop, bandaging it during a lunch break and finishing the scene. Co-star Max von Sydow recalled, "John got badly hurt, but halting wasn't an option for him. It just wasn't who he was." Wayne's grit shone after a 1964 cancer surgery removed a lung and several ribs. Defying doctors, he returned to performing his own stunts in The Sons of Katie Elder months later. Director Henry Hathaway recalled, "I urged Duke to use a double for the tough scenes after his operation. He just stared at me and said, 'Either I do my stunts or you find someone else.' That was that." Though Wayne's political views later sparked debate, even his critics respected his physical courage. Kirk Douglas, who clashed with him ideologically, said, "You can disagree with his politics, but never doubt his toughness. I've seen him work through conditions that would have broken most men. John Wayne was as tough as the characters he played." 8. Robert Mitchum. Robert Mitchum's effortless cool on screen wasn't a performance. It was the natural demeanor of a man who'd endured real hardship, violence, and even incarceration before Hollywood. Orphaned young, Mitchum lived as a Depression-era drifter, hopping freight trains and taking grueling jobs like ditch digging and coal mining. He also boxed professionally as a teenager under the name Jimmy Mitchum, building both the rugged physique and broken nose that defined his screen image. Unlike actors who exaggerated their fighting past, Mitchum had thrown and taken real punches in the ring. A formative experience came when Mitchum was arrested for vagrancy as a teen and sentenced to a Georgia chain gang. This brief but brutal ordeal gave him a raw understanding of a harsh world most tough guy actors only mimicked. Director Edward Dmytryk, who worked with Mitchum on Crossfire, said, "Bob didn't need to prove his toughness. It was obvious. There was a real edge to him that you couldn't fake." Mitchum's physical strength surprised those around him. During The Night of the Hunter, director Charles Laughton was amazed when Mitchum effortlessly carried actress Shelley Winters through multiple takes of a demanding scene without tiring. Off-screen, Mitchum's toughness emerged during a 1948 arrest for marijuana possession, a scandal that could have ended his career. Instead, he served 60 days in prison with the same calm detachment that marked his performances, emerging with his reputation for resilience intact. Mitchum's view of acting reflected his grounded perspective. Unlike stars who treated their craft with reverence, he famously said, "I've got two acting styles, with a horse and without." This wasn't humility, but the outlook of a man whose real-life struggles dwarfed the dramas of filmmaking. Director Josef von Sternberg noted, "Some actors build characters, others reveal who they are." Mitchum was the latter. The hardness you see isn't acting. It's a life of trials etched into every look. When asked about his tough guy roles, Mitchum quipped, "I've used the same face for 40 years, and it's done all right." That face, world-weary, dangerous, and sharp, wasn't crafted for the camera but shaped by real experiences long before he became a star. 9. Anthony Quinn. Anthony Quinn's commanding screen presence wasn't born in acting schools. It was forged in a childhood of poverty and hard labor that built both his powerful frame and resilient spirit. Born in Chihuahua, Mexico during the Mexican Revolution, Quinn's early memories included gunfire and his family's desperate escape to the U.S. Settling in Los Angeles' poorest neighborhoods, he began working before age 10. Unlike actors who sculpted their bodies in gyms, Quinn's physique came from years of toil as a butcher's assistant, construction worker, and boxer. As a teenager, Quinn boxed professionally to support his family, earning not just fighting skills but the broken nose that became part of his rugged look. This wasn't a side gig, it was survival for a young immigrant. His strength was evident on set. During Zorba the Greek, a scene required Quinn to carry heavy logs that typically needed 2 men. Instead of using tricks, Quinn performed the task himself, impressing local Greek laborers working as extras. Director Elia Kazan, who collaborated on Viva Zapata, said, "Tony doesn't act tough, he is tough. His strength comes from real work, not trainers. When he plays a laborer or fighter, it's from lived experience." Quinn's commitment to physical scenes persisted into his 50s and 60s. While filming The Guns of Navarone at 46, he performed a dangerous cliff-climbing sequence despite the stunt coordinator's advice to use a double. Unlike many tough guy actors who guarded their macho image, Quinn was unafraid to show vulnerability, weeping on screen without worrying about seeming weak. This confidence stemmed from a man secure in his toughness. Co-star Sophia Loren said, "Anthony had a warrior's strength and a poet's heart. He could lift you with one hand, then talk about art with a depth that surprised those who only saw his tough roles." In his autobiography, Quinn reflected on his physical roles. "I've played boxers and laborers because I know their lives. Before Hollywood, my hands were rough from real work. I've carried heavy loads, thrown real punches, and known real hunger." His authenticity made him magnetic, both on screen and off. "When I portray these resilient figures, I'm not acting. I'm drawing on real memories." 10. Charlton Heston. Before his iconic roles in sweeping epics and later political activism, Charlton Heston proved his toughness through military service and a near-reckless dedication to performing his own stunts. His World War II service wasn't a Hollywood fabrication. As an aerial gunner in the Army Air Forces, Heston faced genuine peril. Though he rarely dwelt on it, he once remarked, "Flying a B-25 at 15,000 feet with enemy fire coming at you sharpens your focus in a way nothing else can." Heston's physical commitment on set became the stuff of Hollywood legend. For the 10 Commandments, he endured the Sinai Desert's grueling conditions, scorching heat that hospitalized crew members for dehydration and exhaustion. During Ben-Hur, Heston spent months mastering chariot driving, sustaining multiple injuries. Refusing a stunt double for the iconic chariot race, he performed most of the sequence himself, including a near-catastrophic moment when he was almost thrown from the chariot. Director William Wyler, not one for lavish praise, said, "Chuck's physical bravery is extraordinary. Most stars of his caliber would have demanded doubles for what he endured." Heston's dedication shone in the agony and the ecstasy, where he portrayed Michelangelo. To capture the artist painting the Sistine Chapel ceiling, Heston spent hours daily with his arms raised, causing painful muscle spasms and inflammation. When offered padding or more comfortable positions between takes, he declined, believing the real discomfort enhanced his performance's authenticity. Co-stars often marveled at his stamina and resolve. Sophia Loren, who worked with Heston on El Cid, recalled, "Charlton wore a 70-pound suit of armor all day in Spain's summer heat when most actors could barely last an hour. He never complained or sought special treatment. His endurance was almost superhuman." Beyond physical grit, Heston displayed profound moral courage. He stood firm in his beliefs even when it risked his career. Whether marching with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the 1960s or championing gun rights later in life, he faced criticism head-on, never shying from unpopular stances. Director Franklin J. Schaffner, who collaborated on Planet of the Apes, said, "Many actors portray heroes, but Chuck embodies heroism. There's a genuine nobility and courage in him that can't be manufactured. When he plays a man against impossible odds, you believe it because that's who he is." That concludes our exploration of Hollywood's truly toughest actors, men whose real-life experiences brought an authenticity to their roles that today's stars can only aspire to match. If you enjoyed this dive into the untold stories of these classic Hollywood legends, please give a thumbs up and subscribe for more content celebrating cinema's golden age. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Which of these rugged icons stood out to you most? Your insights enrich our shared appreciation for these cinematic giants. Thank you for joining us in honoring the remarkable men behind some of film's most unforgettable tough guy performances.